Okay, so we have the U8 and U9. This is what so you're literally seeing the stuff that we use, and we can modify this as necessary. Now, it's not perfect to a T, right? But we try to have the session structured around this because this is, the best, in our eyes, the best format for the kids to get as much, or I should say to maximize their development. So that's what we have here with the structure. So U8 and U9 is typically an hour and a half. It can be a little less, a little more, but this is the outline that we give our coaches to say, this is what we want to see from your sessions. And then if they're not doing that, that's when we can come back and say, hey, we need to correct these actions and these behaviors because we're not seeing what we want to see. We do obviously provide some flexibility, like if we know that there's a tournament or something coming up or a game or whatever that we feel like we need to prepare differently for, then we provide flexibility where we'll say, okay, if they do 3 practices a week as the example, they'll do 2 days following this format, and then we give them the flexibility of 1 day. So like example would be like they practice Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. So Monday, Wednesday would follow this, and Thursday they can do stuff that they want to prepare the team tactically, or game prep would be the best way to explain it. So that's what we allow them to do, but we want them to focus on this part here because this is what we do, and we feel it helps maximize the kids' growth. So the first phase is technical activation. They do whatever physical warm-up before that. Usually we have them do laps. Not everybody likes laps. It's what we have them do. And we make sure that they're very organized and they don't just run on their own, but we try and keep them in lines of 2 so they have to stay connected and work as a group. And then they come back like the session that I demonstrated. I did all dribbling. I would have done juggling, but I didn't feel like I had enough control of the group, so I didn't do the juggling part, so I skipped that. So they do 20 to 30 minutes. And then we try to tie in coordination to that. That's really tied into one, but we can make it separate if necessary. And then we go into phase 3, which is 1v1 or 2v1, depending on what we're working on, which we'll go hit back in a second. And then 4, we finish with some sort of game, which is typically 3v3 or 5v5. We try to keep it as low as possible. And then, let's say there's 9 kids. We could do 3 teams and have 3v3, v3. So 1 team off, 2 teams on, and then they're rotating. So if you guys feel like that's a good fit for what you guys want at the organization, we can implement the same thing, or we can modify as necessary.
So one question on on phase 4 for the 3v3, or say you have 9 kids that are there for, especially for the little ones.
Yeah.
Instead of having the kids, the 2 teams will be playing a 3v3, and then one team is sitting off. Would you also recommend that those 3 kids, instead of sitting there, and obviously they should be watching, but they're little kids.
Yeah.
Should they also do maybe like a 2v1 situation as well while, the 5-minute or 4-minute game is going on at that time?
Good question. So what we do, we've done 2 things, is either they act as ball boys because balls will be flying off the field. So what we normally do is like a 3-minute game because we want to make it competitive, or a goal. So if there's a goal scored, they switch immediately. If it's not, then what we typically have them do is some sort of technique on the side, like juggling or dribbling, while they're just staying active. And a lot depends on the age group, not age group, but maturity of the kids. If they're really mature, then normally we can let them just be ball boys and they'll figure it out and they'll be paying attention. If they're not at that maturity level yet, then we have them do some sort of technical thing on the side. Now we could have them go and set up another grid on the side and do 1v1 or something for sure. I mean, we can spin it in many different ways. I mean, that's entirely possible and not an issue. And I think a lot of that will be due or down to the coach. So this is where they have to think a little bit, but we can provide the outline and say, look, if you don't think you have the mental maturity of the kids, then have them do something. So juggling, dribbling, maybe it's 1v1, maybe it's 2v1, whatever it is.
Okay.
So are you guys happy with this, or is there anything you want to modify?
I'm not a big laps person.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever have them do a couple with the ball, maybe, and telling them do inside outside? I mean, I could get over not being a laps person, but
well, it doesn't have to be laps. We just have them. That's what we do. But you could have them do cone to cone jogging, high knees, butt kicks. But we want them to do something to be active before the session.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be a lap. The reason why we do laps is because it's just, hey, go run 2 laps and you're back and we start. But again, we can tailor it to whatever you guys need or want to do. So if you want to do some sort of physical warm up, and then what we do with the dribbling part is what you just talked about with the ball skills. And then we can do the outside, inside, drag, touch, foundation, all that stuff. But and it can be cone to cone. It could be, run 10 yards, run back, and do that 5 times, and then just do something to get tuned in for the session.
Right.
So Kyle, this is where, and not that everything I do is right by no means, but instead of having, because like, you know, like as more our kids got older and stuff like that, finishing it was always going to be more difficult for our team. So that's the first thing the kids would do is they would go there and they would instantly start shooting on goal, you know, or go on goal and just, you know, be a goalkeeper. And that's fine. But instead of doing that, what I started doing is basically setting up small-sided games. So I would just set up, you know, four small goals, and then just whoever is there first is they would go 1v1, and then the person go on is like 2v1, and break it down like that, just to get them moving and get them active, and maximize the amount of touches they can, and obviously focusing on the small-sided stuff. So then I kind of eliminate the laps. But at the same time, they're still running, just in a shorter distance and more game-like, you know, game speed and things like that. So that's one thing that I like to do, and especially too, like a lot of the kids, younger kids, they'll sit in front of goal and they'll just shoot on goal too, which is great. But at the same time, it's kind of like defeats the purpose of getting there 15 to 20 early and things like that. And that's just my opinion. That's what I do, and that seems to work well. It also motivates the parents. Like the kid is like, I don't want to be last because I don't want to be on this team, or I always want to be first. Right.
So that's something that we've done too. If we know that the group is not at a higher level, we'll flip it. So they do phase 4 first is what we would call that. They would do phase 4 first for 10 to 20 minutes or even 5 minutes, whatever it is, just to get them active. So that's entirely possible too. And again, it can be played with in any way, shape, or form. You know, we can say, hey, first thing that you guys do when they come is set up a field. That way your field's already set up for phase 4. They play for 5 to 10 minutes. Once everybody shows up, then we go into phase 1, 2, and 3. And then you just modify time as necessary. So yeah, totally. We've done the same thing.
And honestly too, like, I mean, the phase 4, that can still be in play. You know, I just do that from 15 minutes because I typically get there like 5:15, 5:20 or whatever. And then you start showing up at 5:40, and they just play from, you know, 20 minutes, and then we start right at within like a warm up, and then go to phase 1 typically.
Right.
So that's good, but I don't know if I guess when we go, well, especially on Friday too, you know, if we hand this out to our coaches and start giving it, we just want to give them the right idea of like, hey, this is what we recommend, because there are some coaches that have 8-year-olds running, and then they have them running literally probably 4 or 5 times in practice, like running laps in practice.
Nice, great. Yeah, that's unnecessary.
Yeah.
Right. We kind of want to get away from running or running laps, and it's the same thing of like the maturity level of the kids, like how mature are these coaches, and I mean that respectfully.
Sure.
But some of these coaches are like, oh, you're talking. Instead of running, have them sit down, or you have to do different. So,
well, it's meeting the kids where they're at, right? You got to understand the group that you're getting into and dealing with them. So that's why, like, we like this outline, because it can be modified and tailored as necessary. And then obviously we take into consideration when I go out and do evaluations of the staff. I'm like, look, like for example, we have 3 levels of 2014. Our top level 2014 is really, really good. But I can't expect the level 2 and the level 3 to be able to come anywhere near close to what the level 1 team can do. So we always take that into consideration when it comes to whatever. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy. We can tailor that. We can say, hey, look, if you guys want to use that, we can say, hey, if you know your kids are coming early, whether it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or at 6 or whatever time they start practice, have them do a game for the first 10 minutes. That way they're running, they're getting involved, they're playing, they're having fun. And then you can jump into the actual activities that you plan for. You just have to modify. And that's why that you can see like the timestamps. It's 20 to 30 minutes, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 20 to 30, just because you have to modify as you're going through.
All right.
So we can for sure do that. We can tailor this in any way that you guys need and make it happen, not a problem. So we can put that, because I just want to make sure we're on the same page for this. So on Friday, we're going to sit there and we're going to present this stuff to them. And then they're going to be asking questions, and this is how you want to do that, right? I just want to make sure I'm on the same page with you guys.
So Heather, let me answer this. Let me answer this first part first, and then Heather, just for help, is one, we'll go through our agenda, the coaches meeting, like the agenda that we have, we'll send that over to you as well. I will do a brief introduction of who you are and what we're doing with you, and then I believe there's a part in there in the agenda for, let me just pull it up too. For basically, you'll be the last one, and basically going over the presentation. Not necessarily because we won't have a TV there. But we can either print this. I would say probably print this out for them, Heather, and like per age group. And then Kyle, you can go over kind of like a Cliff Note version of, you know, what we're doing, what the presentation will look like, you know, for the age groups. And we don't have to cover everything, obviously.
Sure. Yeah, they'll have it in front of them. Just a summary.
Just the version and, you know, main concepts, and I'll get with you in regards to those main bullet points for the age groups, and like just like what we talked about, like the pre-practice things and so forth. But yeah, so he'll probably have like what 15 to 20 minutes to talk.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask Kyle. Like, how much time would you like?
I mean, I think as long as we can hit the main points of what we want them to do, so it shouldn't take me very long to do that. Because I mean, really, the key ages are going to be the first three, which would be U8, U9, U10, U11, U12, U13. There's a lot more flexibility when you start getting to older kids. So as long as I can hit those three age groups.
Do you think 20 minutes is good?
Yeah, I don't think I'll need more than that. I mean, if we're just going to review this stuff, and then I just have to explain why, and if anybody has any personal questions or if we need to conversate with somebody, that's no problem. I can go out and, you know, have those smaller group or one-on-one conversations.
Yeah, because we'll probably go through our stuff pretty quick, and then you'll have the majority of the time.
Okay. Sweet.
And we'll I mean, it does say 6 to 7:30. However, we have that room for whatever time, so we're gonna order food, drinks, whatever, do this, and then, you know, like you said, we're more than welcome to stay there later as well too.
Okay. Yeah, not a problem. We can make that happen. And then what I can do is, you know, obviously I can draft this up differently, but the sessions for the younger kids, I can modify it slightly and say, hey, look, you know, between, or at least talk about it, you know, if your kids are arriving at 5:45 to 6:10, and a lot of times kids are late, you can have them do some sort of game. That way, you know, you already have, because one of the things that is my biggest pet peeves is, and you guys have the space, is the coaches should try and set up their entire session as much as they can in advance. That way they don't have to pause and have kids wait and standing there and just not doing nothing. So it's better to already have the field set up in a certain way that they can just rotate from one station to one station or whatever they're doing. It just makes flexibility a lot easier and keeps the kids engaged. Okay, so let me write that down as a note so I can do that. And that would be the pre-warm-up. Sweet. Done. Okay. So we're good with the U8 and U9. I'll add I'll call it a pre-warm-up, so pre-phase one. So I'll just say warm-up, and I'll put small-sided game for this age group. So moving to U10 and U11, same type of thing. Again, it's not going to change much, just because most of the time, most of the kids that are this age group don't have the level yet. So the only thing that we add is they can do passing in the technical activation, but we still want them to maximize touches. Like we have a U10 and a U11 group, and they're both very low skilled. So we just basically continue on from U8 and U9, transferring it to U10 and U11. And then we keep it 1v1 and 2v1, and then I'll show you the other documentation again as to why. But if you feel like we need to change that and let them, you know, go higher numbers, we can. We try and keep it as refined as possible. Or we can do what I talked about before is they do 2 times a week practice or 3?
2.
Okay. So they could do, for example, let's say they do Tuesday, Thursday. They could do Tuesday following this methodology, and then the Thursday could be more flexible, preparing for the game on the weekend or the tournament or whatever is coming up, where they can go a little bit bigger numbers. But this way, if you keep it like this, they'll see the kids improve faster because they're going to be getting more touches, more reps, more engagement, more fun, more goals. So I'm kind of leaving it to the flexibility of what you guys think you want to do with this, just because I haven't seen all the age groups yet.
I mean, this age group, I even just think this alone right now. I mean, the other one that's a little bit more advanced is Joseph's team. They're U10 or U11, I think.
U11.
So I mean, like, I think this is good right here, and just implementing the pre-phase one, like the pre-warm up or whatever.
Right.
Sorry. For the phase one, are we saying that they need to stretch on their own, or are we not saying they need to stretch at all and they're just supposed to jump into things, or do you guys do stretching with your teams or?
We don't. If we do stretching, we do it at the end.
Okay.
We had one or two guys do it before, but me personally, I just felt we only get the kids for an hour and a half, 2 or 3 times a week. I'd rather get them on the ball as quick as possible.
So, and then real quick too, I'm just gonna kind of like go over my structure is like, so I'll do the small sided games first for just the first 15 minutes, whatever.
Yeah.
And right at 6, we will go into quick warm ups just like we normally do in a game, and it's basically 10, 10 just it's not static stretching. It is like
Dynamic warm up.
Yeah, dynamic warm up, and then we go straight into one touch passing, give and goes, overlaps, and then we'll go into the juggling. It basically goes over with the dribbling and passing skills, so for phase 1. So, I will do that typically for the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The first phase for me probably lasts. I try to go like no more than 15 minutes, just because, like Kyle said, like I have them for an hour and a half. I think I have for 3 minutes or 3 sessions, but I do the dynamic stretching, the warm up, and then at the end when I'm talking to them after the session is over, I make them do the static stretching. But that's what they want to do on their own.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I do. But
I like the dynamic warm-ups.
Yeah, and just for clarification, so like we don't typically start until 6, like with our groups. So at 6, that's when we send them to go do the laps. Now again, they don't have to be laps. It could be what Javier said. You have them do dynamic warm up for 5 minutes, and then they come back and then do the activation. Or it could be they go ahead and jump into that pre-phase where it's just they start playing. It's kind of open to discretion, so we can tailor it as necessary.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's go to the next one. So I'll add that stuff later. U12 and U13. So same type of thing. Depending on the level of the kids. Like we have a U13 group that's okay. Like there's like probably half the kids that are okay, and then half the kids are not so good. So we try and focus again on just using these 3 key elements. If they were better, then we might push them to a higher level skill work. But then we do the same type of thing. And then you can see when we get to phase 3, it changes. So they go 1v1 up to 5v4. So that could include like rondos, small-sided possession stuff. But then again, remember, we give them the flexibility. If they know that they have an event that they need to prepare for, i.e. a game or a tournament, we give them the flexibility to go bigger. That way they can practice, what they need to work on for the game. But when we're trying to focus on quicker development, this is when we keep it small-sided to things like this. Because how many players do you have, Javier, in your team? Like 13 or 14?
16.
16, okay. Yeah, so I mean, you'd have to go slightly bigger anyways just to modify your thing. Because I remember the practice I did, I think we had 13, yeah, because we did the box game. So like with that one, I didn't even follow the methodology to a T. I knew that I was trying to work on something because you gave me some feedback. So I said, hey, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. So this is more tailored towards if you have a lower skilled team. If they're better, then you would go to what the higher ages would be, which would be 16 and 17. But this is tailored for it. The skill level is very low. These are the type of things that we want to work on, but it's expanded slightly. So if you look at 16, 17, right, it says when you get to phase 3, it says 1v1 up to 10v8, and then phase 4 is 11v11 game. So then there's a lot more flexibility with sessions, and it just, in my opinion, it always just depends on the level of the group. If the group level is not very good, there's just no reason, and it would be unreasonable to expect success when they just don't have the skills yet. Now, if the team is closer to your son's team level, then you have more flexibility to but to implement different training and higher level of training because they have higher skill.
Right.
So any thoughts for the 12s and 13s?
G, what was your thought on the like you had a concern about coaches just playing all day and every practice they're just scrimmaging?
Yeah, I think some of the 13 age groups or like the 11 age groups, I see some of the teams like half the practice they'll be playing the whole entire time. So like
that's awesome.
I was kind of concerned about like when we put this out to them that they see the game game-like
Mm-hmm.
situations. I don't know if like maybe we could like put under it or something like that, at least like explaining the positions, because I feel like some of these kids don't even know what a defender does or what a midfielder does or what a forward is supposed to, like, responsibility is supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just putting them there and they're playing, and they're not even like stopping the player and telling them what they do wrong. They're just being like, okay, just have like
Just go out and run. Okay, so
Free-for-all.
let me make sure I understand. So this is with your 12s and 13s where you'll have coaches basically do, I don't know, probably some sort of warm up, right? And then they just go scrimmage. That's what you're saying?
yeah.
And it's kind of just a free for all where there's no instruction. They're just kind of running around with their heads cut off, right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's more with our younger groups.
So which ages?
I wouldn't say Joseph's team, but it's still the B team, U11 team. It's
Yeah.
10-year-olds.
yeah.
So like U12, U11, U10 is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're saying those are more the second groups.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we could do is we could go through this kind of information, and then if you want afterwards, we could take them aside for 15 minutes or whatever and just kind of explain, like, look, the feedback that I can say it, the feedback I was given is that you guys do a lot of scrimmaging, which is great. The kids need to play, but can we try and tailor it in a way that's progressive? So the progressive way would be like, look, skill work first, and they might not know how to do it. They might not know how to implement skill training, and that's probably the case. So I'm trying to think how to. I mean, if you want as well, we could probably do a thing where I do a demo for 30 minutes. If you bring a group of kids, I could be like, hey, this is what you should try and do beforehand, before you do a scrimmage, and here's why. I don't know if you think that would be beneficial, but I'm more than happy to do that if you can give me a group of kids. It don't have to be a lot, but give me a group of kids where I can kind of demonstrate kind of like what I did with the U9s a couple weeks ago. Because my guess is they probably just don't know what they're doing in the sense of how do they implement skills training. And then two, they don't, a lot of times I've talked to people and they go, oh, the kids don't need to do skill work. Well, that's not true. If they don't have the skills, it's unreasonable to expect that they're going to be successful in the game. It's just impossible. So it's just having those conversations, and I think showing them what they can do. If there's no TV, I was going to say I could show them some clips that we have, but that's not going to help them if there's no TV. So if you want to try that, we can, where I can go out and run a demo for 30 minutes afterwards or something, or I guess before, it doesn't really matter, whatever you guys think would work best, and I can show them, hey, this is how, why, when.
I mean, we have a TV in like the clubhouse. I was thinking maybe we could do like an informational thing for all the coaches, but I don't know if that would work or not. But
I think with the coaches the coaches are planning on being there at 6.
Mm-hmm.
And let me call it the Aqueduct to see if I can get a TV in there. Or if we can connect to a TV, one of the TVs out in that little area that they have. Let me see if I can get there, because I think if you have the coaches go to the clubhouse and then go back to.
Oh, no, I meant like at another time. Not
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would recommend another time, like when Carl's here for another visit.
Yeah.
I would definitely do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
we
what
could
I'm
do it too.
talking about.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm more than happy to
Would
do
you
that.
agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I just think the biggest challenge is if you got people that are in the positions that don't know what they're doing, they're just going to keep doing the same insanity over and over again because they don't know. So it's better to try and give them the tools to do that. And one of the things that we used to do that we found that was not successful is we would give them the information through paper, but they didn't take the time to read it or look at it, or they didn't take that investment within themselves to make that decision to do it. So I'm just like, I think it's better to bring them in front somewhere to say, hey, be here, watch this, this is why. And then we can have a conversation in terms of structure and why they should do this and whatnot. I mean, there's plenty of stuff that I have that could show them just basic stuff they could do. It's not hard in any way, shape, or form.
And I think too, Kyle, this is going to be MG. This is another thing for us and Heather. I think, like you said too, to your point of giving them this information, this investment, and what are they going to do with it? That we're giving them, this is going to be mandatory to review as well and to start implementing right away, I think. And I think we need to tell the coaches that, Heather. Next week in practice, we want to see this starting to be implemented within making sure you guys are reviewing the information. If you have any questions, please reach out to myself or Heather in regards to this, and then we can review it as necessary.
Yeah, and the thing that it does is once we have it and it's implemented, then if they're not following it, we can have a follow-up and say, hey, remember, we want this, and this is why. This is why. Because the thing is, the sell is, this is for the kids. This is for the benefit of the kids in terms of their progress and improving. We want the kids to improve every single year. Because one of the biggest issues that we had was, parents would come back and say, oh, I don't think my kid's improving. Because when we first started, I think I told you guys, we kind of let the coaches do whatever they wanted. And now we have it to a structure where, if their child is not improving, that's more than likely because they either don't come to practice or they're not serious. So as long as they do 50% effort, they will get better because they're just doing small-sided stuff the entire time. It's almost impossible not to unless you choose not to, by not showing up or just not doing what you need to do at practice. So the children will get better by practicing, and by keeping the numbers smaller, it's a much easier sell to do that. So that's easy. If you think we need to go review 14 and 15, we can. Again, I think that's just more flexibility stuff. And again, it's just kind of for lower skilled players. But if you need, we can tailor stuff and make it more feasible for the older groups if you think it's necessary.
I mean, I would like to emphasize that all the coaches should use this
Okay.
A little bit, especially they're the U15s, especially the U13 and U15 girls. They need to stick to this
Okay.
at least one day a week, just because there's a lot of lines out there and a lot of shooting.
Oh, great.
And
There's one activity that I can show. It's kind of complicated, but it's not that hard once you can get it running. That will tie phase 1 and phase 2 together for the older ages. So that would be like 13 and plus. So I can show it to you. Javier, it's pretty quick. And it's 3 stations. You can add a goal if you want to add a finishing element. But station 1 is a guy that I'll try and quickly explain. He dribbles through a set of cones, runs to the middle of the field or to wherever he needs to go. He stops and leaves the ball. Then he runs out to do a coordination piece. Then a guy that was doing the coordination piece runs out to go pick up the ball. He goes and plays a 1-2, and then he can finish on a dribble or he can finish on a shot. And that way you got all 3 pieces. They're doing dribbling, passing, and a finishing element at the end. And that's an activity that we used a lot. It's actually from a European club, which is cool. So, but it's just a good activity to tie in all the pieces in one. And I've always found the way, if you can tie in where they have to be paying attention, especially at the older age groups, it really gets them to focus and concentrate on what they're doing. So, but I can show you that another time. But I think that's a good activity that's ties in phase 1 and phase 2 pretty quickly. You can run it 2 or 3, maybe 3 to 4 minutes hard, break, 3 to 4 minutes hard, break. You can kind of do it in 3 sets and modify as necessary. But that'll be good for the older kids, which I can show. Very intense. So the 14s and 15s that you said have a lot of lines. I think you said 13 girls and 15 girls. Are they, I'm assuming, also not highly skilled either?
No.
Okay.
Correct.
So they'll need this. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, so I can also have it. Do you want them to also do the pre-warm-up where they can just kind of play as well?
I would suggest that just because they need more touches on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're out there from 5:30 to 7, and then 7:30 or 7 to 8:30, something like that.
Okay, so it's one coach running 2 sessions, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay, so she does like the 13s first and the 15s after type of thing.
Right.
Okay, cool. So that's fine. I can do that. And then what about the 16s and 17s?
The 16 B team boys. I believe it's a 16, right, Heather? Alberto's team?
I think it's the 2007, right?
Yeah.
Combined B team. 2007s, 2008s.
That team needs to follow this.
Okay.
They're somewhere there, somewhere not.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say...
Then we have Pietro's team.
Oh, shoot, yeah, sorry. Pietro's team, they're U15.
2009s.
09s, yeah.
Okay, and those are lower skilled teams.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm more than happy to say that at the meeting and say, listen, this is more designed for lower skilled teams, and that's unfortunately going to be mostly kids in most clubs. So this is where we're trying to fit those kids, and then we can modify, and that's why it always says modify as necessary based on level of the group, so that they can have the flexibility to change it. Okay, so you want me to add the same thing, the pre-warm-up for them as well?
Yeah.
But our 2009 coach does the line thing a lot, so we're
Nice.
trying to break that.
It's not even lines, Heather. It's one line.
I mean,
Sorry.
it's one line.
Okay.
It's one line, Kyle.
Okay, so that's one of the things that I'm going to have to make sure we talk about is lines. Yeah, I remember watching when I was there last time, I think it was your U10 coach. Like, it was actually, there was some stuff he did that I liked, and then there was some stuff where he just had kids waiting, and I'm like, man, it's just, if you can still have, lines, but as long as they're not resting more than 30 seconds and they're continuously going, it's okay. Because if they work hard and then break, it's okay. But if they're sitting there for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, it's completely
They
unreasonable.
end up just like punching each other.
Yep.
Kicking each other.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Or else.
Okay, so I'll make sure we add that. Not a problem. I'll modify it and I'll send it to you guys for review. Okay, so let's go to the front of the page to start by. It's really 2. So if we go to 2, and we can show this if you guys want at the meeting, and we can kind of explain why. But there's 3 things that we would look at. Solving a player surplus. That means if you have the advantage, that's like, again, 2v1, 3v2, so on and so forth. The next one, page 3, is possession. So if you want to teach kids how to possess the ball, we've always found the best way to do that is by having an advantage. Otherwise, again, thinking about lower skilled players, if they're playing 2v2, they don't have the advantage. Now, you could do a neutral, so it could be, 2v2 plus 1, so it's 3v2. Again, I just think that's hard, but that's the reason why it says U9 to U11. And then the last one would be creating a player surplus. This is usually from even numbers, trying to create that overload, and that's usually from a dribble or a quick combination. So I can present these to coaches and to kind of explain why and go into a little bit more detail as to why we're doing this. Again, thinking about the kids' development. If you don't feel it's necessary, we don't have to show this at all, but at least it would be there for a resource if you want it.
Heather, what are your thoughts?
I'll let you go with that one.
I mean, we can even print it if you want and give it to them and just say, hey, this is a reference point for you. This is why. We don't really have to go into too much detail if you don't want to, but I can quickly explain it or just give it to them as information to have.
Yeah, and I would do that, and then just present it to them that we want them to actually, look into this material too, because we will be following up with this with all the coaches and the teams on that. So I would definitely print it off. So I'll have G print that off as well for them.
Okay, good. Let's see. I don't know if we need to talk about this too much. Do you guys have issues with like players being stuck in positions, which would be page 6?
For the younger age groups,
Sweet.
I think they're not, which is probably U10, U11.
Mm-hmm.
I
They're
would say
not.
U9 to U12, Heather.
Huh?
I would say U9 to U12.
Okay, because I'm not sure what Jacob does, but I know Joseph, which is our U11, it's our first team.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of keeps the boys since last year in the same positions, and I think that's damaging them.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit.
Definitely is. Well, so one of the things, again, we're not perfect, but what we try and do is if we know, for example, that we're going to play easier teams, we rotate the kids more. If we know that we're going to play a harder team, what we've done is we try to play their stronger positions, but if we're either up or down by 5, that's when we start rotating. Because at that point, there's almost no way to come back if you're down by 5 or up by 5. It's
Right.
almost impossible. So a lot of times it'll just depend on who they're playing. But, once you get to that point, being up or down by that much, there's just really no comeback unless, strange things do happen, but...
If you could discuss that in the meeting, that would be wonderful.
Sure, yeah, no
Of
problem.
the importance of that age group.
Yeah,
Like the players learning all positions
Mhm.
and not being stuck.
absolutely, not a problem. You can definitely do it. I think that's kind of anything else we need to discuss from those 4 graphics. You think we're okay with these?
I think we're good.
Okay, so then I have the last one, which is page 8. We can talk about this if we need to. This is just what I do. So, and this is also for parents, but I explain it to coaches and parents, and I say, look, if your child does not have core skill, which means fundamental ball skills, they don't have the ability to dribble, they can't beat somebody 1v1, they can't pass or receive with both feet, it's unreasonable for them to be successful at a high level at U9 or U10 or U11, U12. And the point of that is to just kind of help reinforce why we want to do training the way that we're going to do training. So that way they hopefully connect the dots. Sometimes it doesn't happen right away. But like, you know, I'll see people doing passing drills with the kids and they don't have the correct form of passing. So example would be that their toes are pointed down versus being pointed up. They don't lock the ankle. They don't follow through. You're teaching a kid how to pass the ball without teaching them how to pass the ball.
Right.
So those are just things that we try and teach to make sure that the kids are learning and progressing. That way they're getting those reps to improve. Otherwise it's, you know... So I can discuss this briefly if you guys want to, or again, this can be just something that we kind of hand out. And why? Because it's unreasonable to expect kids to be successful playing when they don't have the core skill.
Right. Jane, any comments?
I would like that to be discussed just because I had to fill in for a few practices for one or two teams, and I had some teams still using their toe.
Nice.
To like even clear a ball out as like a toe ball, or like even the proper way of like shooting and stuff like that. I just think that the technique stuff all needs to be gone through with the younger teams, especially.
Okay, yeah, we can definitely. I figured this one was going to have the most interest, so we can definitely look at this and tailor this as necessary. So what we'll do is I think we'll start with the age group structures, so 10 to 14. And then we can review back. So then the second part that they would look at would be the development methodology, which would be 8. And then we can go back and review 2, 3, 4, and 6 at the end to just kind of highlight and summarize why.
Yes.
And I think that would be a good order of operation for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're good with this one. Let's move to the next documentation. Let me pull up the correct order. So the next one is the coaching, education, and more, which would be this one. So that's the one with the, it kind of has a whole bunch of stuff on. So it starts with the coach evaluation form. Let me know when you guys are ready.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay, so I don't think there'll be a lot that we need to correct. I think it's just kind of highlighting. The first one is kind of for us to have when we need to go out and review coaches and look at what they're doing. If we don't have the time to sit there and watch an entire session, so like, let's say at 6 o'clock we want to go watch 3 or 4 practices, we would try and take, we'd have 3 of these sheets, example, and we're going out, we're filling the information out. Are they doing well? Are they not doing well? Or are they in between average? And we just write notes, and then we can set up meetings or whatever, or we hand them this information and provide the feedback. So that would be sheet 1. Sheet 2, this is something that we want to give to each coach as well. Which would be the 5 elements of training to make sure that they kind of understand what they're doing, and I can review this if we need to, but it's just to kind of highlight, is the session organized? Are the kids getting repetition? Are they being challenged? 4 is if you're doing a game, is it game-like? And then 5, what kind of coaching are you providing? So when you talked about the one, I think it was the girls team, or like maybe U10 and U11, and there's just no coaching, they're just scrimmaging. Having this in front of them is we're saying, hey, we're looking for you guys to implement this. We want it to be organized. We want it to have repetition. We want it to be challenging. We want them, if they're doing a game, be game-like. And then what does your coaching look like? If you're just sitting there on the sideline on your cell phone or whatever they're doing, that's obviously unacceptable, and we need to improve that method. So any questions on the first 2 or thoughts?
No question.
Okay. So the next one on page 3 is the coaching interactions. Again, this is just a document to give. They don't have to do all of them, but it's just a way that most of the time, this is how a coach would interact and provide their coaching points or whatever they want to discuss. I don't think I need to break this down too much, but we would give this to the coaches at the meeting and say, hey, look, think about these. How are you doing it? What are you saying and why? So are you commanding them? Are you giving them feedback? Are you demonstrating? Are you asking questions? Are you using keywords from what you're trying to work on? And then when are you doing it? Are you doing it in the flow of the practice? Are you stopping it? So a freeze. Is it in the flow? Is it a natural stoppage? What are they doing to actually implement? It's kind of a lot that they have to go through and think about, but this is just something that we want them to think about. Page 4, This was just an example session from a lower skilled team that we've implemented before. So we can give that, and then we kind of give the flexibility of what their session should look like. And you can see the coaching points very simple. Give 100%, have fun, and shoot. Like it's not anything serious. 5 is the session outline if you want. This is Javier really for 13 and older, for coaches that really want to try and think about being more descriptive and thoughtful with their practices. So this is just a template for it. And then 6 is the 3 main forms of training. Again, this is just to help provide coaches an idea of thought process for their sessions. What are they trying to work on, and why are they trying to work on it? Any questions about 3, 4, 5, and 6?
I would need, I don't know what page this is because it doesn't show me, but the overview for U8.
Mm-hmm.
Can you remove from the warm-up just laps,
Yeah, I can take that up.
please?
Not a problem. Let me write that down. This is U8. Session overview. Remove laps. Done. Okay. Let's go to 7. This is something that we used before that was a little bit more descriptive. So if a coach wants to meet higher standards, well, I guess I should say this is for the standards that we want to have, that we do implement for our coaches. And then obviously 8, 9, and 10 is a little bit more descriptive of what we want as a coach. So, I mean, I'm not going to go through each one individually, but making sure that they're wearing the gear, they're focusing on what they need to do in sessions, they're challenging the kids, making sure that they're actually teaching and not standing on the side, making sure that they arrive on time, because one of the things that we even have issues with this, I'm sure you guys do, people will show up at 5:59 for a 6 o'clock practice as a coach, and they need to be there obviously at least 15 minutes before to set up their sessions. It's impossible otherwise. So just little key pieces they need to have to make sure that they're organized and that they're following, and then we give them the rubric to say this is what we want to see. Page 8 highlights what, again, overview, guideline, what we want to see from this age range. So we actually made this mistake where we put a coach that was probably better for U14 and older on a U9, and super passionate, super energetic, but he did not know how to communicate with 8 and 9-year-olds. So we made that mistake, and we actually made this mistake like 3 months ago, and we had to make that change pretty quickly. So, those are things that coaches need to know and be aware of for their specific age groups. And as a group, us making sure we put the right person in place to deal with, especially younger kids. If you don't have somebody that's a good fit for them, it'll just go to hell very quickly, like it happened with us, and that was a huge mistake. So I will never make that mistake again. Any thoughts about those two before we move on? Okay. Let's see, 9, page 9. This is U9 and U10 developmental base. This is, again, what we used before we changed to the new structure that I just showed you previously. So if you want, we can use this. If you don't feel like it's necessary, we don't have to use it. It's just kind of a little bit more descriptive of what should be done during training. But if you don't think right now it's a good fit, we can just leave it to the side and save it for later if we need to.
I mean, I think if we give it to him, it's good. Just as an outline, I think the more material we give him,
Okay.
just start implement. I mean, and you're the one with the more experience in this outline and things like that. So if you think it's good to provide him with this more information, since we're trying to implement so many things this in this season, I guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you think it's a good thing, I think I think this just gives those coaches especially.
Yeah, I think it's beneficial to give it to them. I don't think we should discuss it much. If somebody has any individual questions, we can talk about it. But we gave this to staff, and we literally told them, like, look, if you want to be, we call it a 1% coach. If you want to be a 1% coach, this is what you're going to do. You're going to be way more descriptive. You're going to be way more focused. You're going to have, you're going to follow this type of plan. If you don't want to and you just want to do your thing, then follow this one. Now, again, this is going to be more tailored towards the higher level teams than the lower skilled teams. And that's why we made that kind of like shift from the curriculum standpoint. But I think having the information is obviously important.
Yes, I do. I agree.
So next one, U11 and U11 and U12, same type of thing. I don't think we need to go too much into it. So again, we can kind of hand it out. Next one is 13-14, which is the transitional phase. Again, same type of thing. Structure-wise, we have the 15-16s in the next one, and then 17s and 19s. And then the last part we have is general goalkeeping training priorities, which is on the last page. I think you guys said you do have a goalkeeper coach, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So do they have, I'm assuming they know what they're doing and they don't really need much help. But maybe we should ask them to maybe build something, because if they decide to leave at some point, at least you can have, an outline of what you want when you're doing the hiring process. Because, if you just hire somebody off the cuff and they don't really know what they're doing, then it could be a problem. But you could say, hey, look, from U9 to U10, this is what we're looking for. U11 to U13, this is what we're looking for. U14 plus, this is what we're looking for. Unless you think that the person you have is, I'm not a goalie coach, so I can't highlight too much. This was just built by my brother, so he gave it to us before he left. And so this is the outline of what you want to see.
I mean, I think it's pretty good. I think she focuses in on this as well. Let me just ask you this too.
Yeah.
In this off topic, but do you think our goalkeeper coach, do you think she should attend some games?
Yeah, I mean, if she can, that'd be great. Absolutely, because that way she can evaluate. It's great to see it just in training, but it's better as well to see it, how they implementing what they're working on from training into games. So yes, if possible.
Okay. Or at least watch film that is recorded from VOs.
I will say what I've noticed for myself, I always feel like when I go watch a game physically, I get way more out of it, obviously, because you're in person, you can see it live. Especially I think with the VAO cameras, they seem a little bit slow compared to the real speed of the game.
Right.
I just think that's the system of it. So I think it does help. I mean, you can still get great feedback, but I just think being there personally, like maybe she comes out once a month just to check up on, how many goalkeepers do you have? I mean, probably 15?
Well, there's 17 teams. So, a couple teams have more than one.
Right.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't really think that she's going to have an issue with the younger ages. I mean, how often do the younger ones, like the U9s and 10s, get goalkeeper-specific training? Do you guys have a lot of them?
I think most of them are supposed to be out there on Fridays.
Got it. Oh, yeah, because it's a separate thing.
Yeah. Separate. Yeah.
Okay.
But what about practices, of her going out to some of the practices? Because I think some teams have trouble with building out of the back. And I think it would help, because it's hard to do it with individual trainings, because most of them do privates with her as well.
Yeah.
But doing it like game-like situations, I don't know about her going out to some of the practices and doing at least like.
So I can tell you what we've done. We used to do just isolated training on one day. So, I don't remember, I think it was a Thursday that we used to have isolated goalkeeper training. But then what we found was we changed it to where we have our current goalkeeper coach. He's actually a kid, but he's very, very good. So we have him come out and he works with all of our age groups, but during practice. And so what we do is we pay him to do usually 20 to 30 minutes of goalkeeper training, but then whatever groups that he's working with, he'll go to, because basically the kids are at training, they leave the training to go work with the goalkeeper coach and then come back. And then we ask him to stay for another 30 minutes to watch and provide feedback to the goalkeepers at training. So usually 1 week he'll do the younger ages, and then the second week he'll do the older ages. So he'll stay for an extra 30 minutes, watch. We have a goalkeeper named Carson, he's an 08, so he'll sit there after the training that he does individually with him and the other keeper that we have that age, and he'll go to their session and watch the session and provide feedback as they're going through it.
Okay.
Hey, hold on. Hey, I'm gonna put you guys on mute real quick. I'm right here. I just gotta talk to Jacob, Heather.
Okay.
So if there's a way to have her do that, that would be great, just because you're providing the feedback. There's a continuous feedback loop. If they're just doing training, like you said, on a Friday, they don't get the additional team dynamic because she'll find stuff that she could adjust, I'm sure, very quickly.
Yeah, I think that would be beneficial having her at some of the practices.
I agree.
Yeah, and it's just logistically trying to have her figure that out. And even, going to, if you guys, I'm assuming you have a lot of home games too, right? I mean, she could spend 2 hours of her time, give or take, because you have 3 fields where she could just kind of rotate between fields and just kind of provide feedback 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Okay, so let's look at the next information, because there's really not much we need to change from this. Okay, so coaching, training session evaluation, great. Let's go look at this, which should be this one. Yes, cool. Okay. So, we talked about this last time. I don't think there's going to be much that we need to change, but this is what we can use when we actually go out and evaluate coaches. So this would be a process where we're going to actually watch somebody and basically watch the entire session, or at least close to it, at least half. It's got to be at least half. There's no way to do it otherwise.
Yeah.
But you can verify. I mean, just the first part, making sure that it's organized. Do they have the stuff ready? And then we provide a score, 1 to 10, and then obviously, hopefully, the higher the score, the better.
Yeah,
Two.
I think one of our main issues is going to be if they get there early to set up the fields, because I can tell you most coaches will have to, they go for a water break and they'll have to set up for like their next, what they're doing next.
So basically they just don't have anything set up. They have the first part and then they take a water break, they go set up. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to try and improve that. That's probably because they don't have a session plan, so they're probably making something up on the fly.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a huge
So
thing.
that makes sense. Yep. Okay.
Yes.
But I mean, that's where I think the session outline, the curriculum will help, because we can say, look, do these things. Like, the session that I ran wasn't hard. I mean, I set up a box. They used that box, then I had the 1v1 field set up. And then if I were to do a scrimmage, I would have either had the field space set up in the 1v1 area, or because I had extra space, I would probably just set up another field somewhere else and just have it ready to go. Now, there might be some times that you have to move some equipment, aka like a goal or a flag or something. That's okay, but doing what you're talking about, where they have to go set up an entire part and the kids are standing there waiting, is terrible.
Yeah.
So we can definitely address that. That's not a problem.
Can you kind of mention about how important it is to have the session planned out before you get there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're not at that level to where they can just show up and on the fly do it, correctly.
No, trust me, I get it. Now, how many of them are paid coaches compared to volunteers, if any?
All of them are paid. All of our head coaches are paid.
Oh, so then they should definitely be having, if they were a volunteer, that's a little bit harder to negotiate, but if they're paid coaches, for sure. Yeah, not a problem.
Our rec coaches are volunteers.
Right. Pre-plan sessions done. Okay, we can definitely discuss that. It's not an issue. I love that. That's awesome. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's times that I make a session and then I'm like, oh, this isn't going to work. So then you got to scratch it and think of something in your mind.
Right.
But that's different than
perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's different than not having anything. Okay, so part 2 is just the repetition piece. Again, if you're thinking about the line and you guys having issues with a lot of lines, this is a great part to have for the repetition, because if they're just standing in line, they're not getting repetition. So, like, example would be like, I'll do stuff where we do have lines, but it's usually 1 and 2 kids. So example would be a kid works for 15 seconds and the other kid rests for 15 seconds, and they're vice versa, and they're working, resting, on and off 15. That's okay, because they're getting time to rest and then they're working immediately. Whereas if it's, again, I would say more than 30 seconds, unless it's extremely high intensity, then it's just not beneficial to the kids at all.
Productive.
Yeah, because they're sitting in line messing around.
Waiting, yeah.
And getting bored.
Yep. Well, it's like you said, punching somebody too would be helpful. Okay, so that's good enough. 3 is the session challenging. And again, it's just meeting kids where they're at. So if the session's too easy in terms, and you'll see that where you just kind of talked about it, they're getting bored, they're pushing each other, they're messing about, they're talking too much, they're not focused, that's going to be an issue. That means it's too easy. Or vice versa, the coach can make it too hard. And, that's what I talked about before, like with possession. If you're going to do possession and you have lower skilled kids, having them play 5v5 just doesn't make sense. You can set up like 3 or 4 grids of 2v1s and you'll get much more success out of the kids.
Yeah.
So just little things like that we can evaluate. 4 is game-like. I don't think we need to go over that too much. It's pretty self-explanatory, but we can just review it later. Coaching points interactions, same type of thing. That's where that other sheet came in with the coaching interactions. But that's just for us to have, and we can really sit down and break and evaluate how the coach is doing and implementing, and we can give them the feedback. Hey, and then we can say, look, this is what we need you to do, and why. So I think that's pretty straightforward. Any questions with this one?
No, I'm good.
No.
Okay. Next one, let's go to the coach improvement plan, which should be this one. So this one is a lot of information. I don't think we need to go too far into it, but this is, Heather, we talked about this previously in terms of if we need to put a coach on a plan because we need them to approve because we think they have the capabilities to do so, we would want to do this. So we would do the evaluation, kind of what we saw before. We would then implement this coach improvement plan depending on what we feel like they need to fix. So it could even be from a game. Like, for example, at the game, they don't even do a warm-up. Okay, well, coach, we need you to do a warm-up. We're going to give you 30 days to implement and improve. And I think I gave you guys the document of what we use. And it's not the end-all be-all, but it's a guideline of what we want to see teams do for a warm-up for their games. So I don't expect to use this very much, but we have it in case we need to put somebody on an improvement plan. We've done it twice within our own program. We found people that we thought were beneficial, and we said, look, we need you to improve. It's kind of like when you work in the corporate world and they put you on an employee improvement plan, or I forget the exact wording, but similar idea. And then we would just kind of highlight what is the area that we need to improve on, and we have it all through the documentation. So I can set this up pretty easy if we need to do this with somebody. We would just highlight the observations, their strengths and areas of improvement, and then give them a timeline. Hey, look, and then we'd have to work with them a little bit more. And if I need to do that, that's fine. We can figure out how to work with the people that we feel like need the help and are willing. And the key is willing to learn.
Yes.
If they're not willing to learn, that's a whole separate conversation. And I would just say at some point it's better to just remove sooner rather than later type of thing. So any thoughts about this one? I don't think we need to do too much with review.
No, I think that's it.
That's good.
Okay.
Good.
All right. So next one is game day criteria. Let's see. Where is my game day? Here. So this is the stuff that we give coaches, and we already gave it to them. So the first page, so you should see High Soccer Coaches Game Day Framework. So we provide the minimum standard, which is just the basics, right? Have your player cards, be at the field 1 hour before kickoff. You need to do warm-ups at least 40 to 30 minutes before kickoff, depending on the temperature. This is one of the hardest parts, but we try to do it every time, is making sure the kids organize their bags behind a bench. One of the biggest pet peeves that I have is kids just throwing their bags everywhere. I cannot stand that. I hate that. So trying to make sure it's organized is key. And again, we can modify this with things that you want to see change or whatever. We can take it. Let's see. 5, follow the protocol, which you'll see lower. Provide the game day instructions, whatever it is. Not just throw the kids on the field. 7 is making sure that they actually wear a watch. Like I was at, we had a guy rent one of our fields at our indoor facility, and he was holding his phone running a clock. And I'm like, dude, please don't do that. Wear a watch. Or do something. Don't use your phone. It doesn't look good when you use phones. And then we have them do a post-game report. I will be completely honest. We have not gotten the, what's the word I want to use, like consistency with this. So we have to follow up with coaches after games. So you can choose to implement it or not if you want. I'll show you what it is after this. But that's basically just a report to highlight, and it's really more for if something happens. So I think you guys talked about how you guys had like a really bad injury at one game. We actually had something similar where it wasn't reported, where we had a tent fly and hit somebody's car and broke the windshield. So we didn't know anything about it. And then we got a call from a guy saying, hey, you guys owe us money for the broken windshield. And we're like, what are you talking about, broken windshield? So that's just having documentation ahead of time so we know if something happens. And we need injury, something crazy like a broken windshield. Luckily, it wasn't our tent, so there was nothing that we needed to do about it. But it was just unfortunate that we had somebody calling us multiple times to get money for a tent that we didn't know anything about. And we're like, what are you talking about? So I think that's kind of all we need to review with that. If you go, again, we have the 1% if they want to do better and improve, they have it. Pre-game warm-up, this is just physical warm-up, technical passing warm-up, whatever it is, or whatever you'll see in a second. 3-player overlap, we love doing this. 4 is possession, 5 is shooting activity. Now, we do add flexibility, so again, it's not always perfect. You don't usually get a lot of space. So sometimes we switch 4 and 3, so we'll do the overlap towards the end if we need to get the intensity up. And then on the next page, you'll see the outline of what we try and do from a warm-up. So this is more of a guideline for coaches, but it's not the end-all be-all. But at least it gives them some sort of platform where they can kind of look at and review and have a thing. Because I don't know, do you guys have a warm-up template at all, or they just kind of do whatever they want whenever they want?
They do what they want, typically.
Okay. So this is just, we use it for uniform. So we say, hey, look, try and follow this. Sometimes, again, there's flexibility to it, obviously, but it's like, hey, try and do this. Do a physical warm-up, technical warm-up, overlaps, possession, and then a shooting activity after the goalkeeper's warm. So we normally have our goalkeeper do the first 2, and then when we get to 3 and 4, we take him out to do goalkeeper warm-up, and then 5, he obviously comes back in to play goalkeeper.
I definitely think we need to tell this to the coaches, because I've been to a couple of games where they go the younger teams will just sit there and shoot.
Man, I love it. That's awesome. That's great.
And even to, I know this might be a little bit more workout, but
yeah,
even to kind of break this into the groups of, for like U9 shows up an hour early before a game, and my team, they show up 45 minutes before the game. That gives them enough time, and that I want them on the field. Some other teams show up 30 minutes before,
right?
Things like that. If you can break it down in the timeline like you have with the other exercises, I think that'd be good and helpful for the age groups.
Okay, so I want to make sure I understand. So you're talking about for the actual framework for the warm-up, right?
Correct.
Okay, and what specifically do you want?
Like the age groups, so U8 to U10,
yeah,
just CDP, let's say 30, arrive 30 minutes before a game.
Got it.
And phase 1 is, hold on, my computer just shut off, but phase 1 is 10 minutes or 5 minutes of this.
Got it. Okay, so you're talking about an outline. Okay, I can do that. Yep. Outline.
Exercise 1, 5 minutes or 2 minutes. 5 minutes for the warm up. Exercise 2, activation. 5 minutes or whatever it may be, and things like that. Just so they have an idea. People are actually there for a useful time, and they're just not there an hour before the game.
Right. Yep. Totally got it. I understand now. So.
I mean, Heather, would you agree on that timeline too?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I can just follow the structure of what we have for the training element. 15. Done. Cool. Not a problem. I can get that one done as well. So you want to present? I'm assuming we're going to hand this off on Friday. This documentation that we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Sweet. All right. So any other thoughts with this?
I'm good.
Cool. So we got 2 more things to kind of look at. Next one is the yearly objectives. So I think I told you guys before, we actually handed this out to the parents. We don't have to do this here, but what we did was we said, look, because we were trying to take away the pressure of just winning games, although that's kind of the most important thing to parents, unfortunately. But we say, look, gauge us on what your kid learns throughout the course of the year. Don't gauge us on the results. So if you get, let me know when you guys are good, but when you get in, you'll see yearly objectives U8 and U9. Next page would be U10, U11, U12, U13, U14, U15, and then 16, 17s. And it's just to provide, we can give this to coaches first, and next year look at presenting for parents. but it gives us a platform to say, hey, look, this is why the training is this way. We're expecting them to be able to learn these things.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they're going to ask, like, I don't understand why they need to improve these skills. Well, this is why. We have objectives that we want them to learn so we can actually show growth. Because that's one of the messages that we changed with high soccer was, look, instead of trying to compete on the result, we said we're going to compete on development. And we want to tell everybody that when your kid comes to us, as long as you show up to practice, your child gives at least 50% effort, they will improve. If they do that, a minimum, they will improve. If you're missing practice or they're not giving effort, they will not improve, and that's up to them. But we will basically guarantee that the child will improve. And that's what this framework allows us to do. So I don't think I need to go in too much about it. Now, I will say this, though, and I can highlight this at the meeting, is let's say you have a group of U12, or let's say U12, and they can't juggle 5 times. It's going to be completely unreasonable for anybody to expect them to get to 50 juggles. So we would have to say, look, more than likely you're going to have to start with the U8 programming because they just don't have the skill yet. It would be unreasonable for them to be able to do U12 programming for the yearly objectives if they don't have the skill level of a U8 player or a U9 player. So they kind of stack upon each other one by one as the development process goes through. But if they don't have the skill to, let's look at U12 again. So let's use the one that says lofted passing ability. If they can't make a 5-yard pass, there's no way I can expect a player to then be able to float the ball to somebody. It just wouldn't make any sense. So do you guys want to give this to parents as well, or just to the coaches to start?
Just the coaches to start.
Okay. Cool. We can definitely do that. No problem.
If we give it to the parents right now, then they're like, well, why is my kid here?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah. This will give them the thing to... Yeah, because then probably by the next season, you guys could say, hey, parents, look, obviously winning's important, but we want to make sure that your child gets better by the end of the year.
Right.
And these are the things that they need to learn. And at least it gives us a platform to try and build that, so that's perfect. We can do that. Any other thoughts or questions?
No.
Okay, and then the last one would be the positions and roles. So let's get that one. I need to go onto this different page. Oops, wrong button. That is right. Where the hell? Oops. Wrong one again. Let's try again. Oh, there it is. Okay, so here, boom. So again, this is something that we gave parents, but we can give just to coaches as well. And I think, this will help answer the question in terms of actually coaching the kids. But I will say the reason why we gave it to parents, well, we gave it to coaches too, but we gave it to parents specifically was, a lot of times they're on the sideline screaming at their kids and they don't have a clue to what they're talking about. So we said, look, these are the things that if your child is playing this position, these are the things that they should be doing, and these are targets that they should have. We have not come up with a main issue yet. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if something does happen, but at least we have the framework that allows us to say, look, this is what we expect your child to be able to do and provide us on the field. Because one of the things that we used to have issues of is parents come up saying, well, my kid's a striker and he needs to play striker, and he's a 9-year-old. And okay, well, if you really want your kid to play striker, here's what he should be doing. But this was more for U13 and older, to be completely honest. But the premise can still be the same. So if you get to an older age and they're 13 and 14 and the dad's like, my son needs to play striker, but he doesn't really do anything up front, this is why he can't play striker, or he's not my main striker. He can play striker sometimes because we can rotate him in, but he's not producing what we're looking for. And it doesn't have to be from the game day objectives. It could just be, the in possession, defending piece, transition, and set pieces. If they're not delivering those type of things, then it's hard to actually implement. But again, from a coaching side, if you have coaches that aren't coaching, this might help them understand what and why a player should be doing, and they can hopefully help coach them through it. So if you guys think it's beneficial to do both, or if you think it's just beneficial for coaches, we can do that as well.
Heather, what do you think?
I can't find where I'm supposed to be. I was listening, but
It's the last link.
the one after the one at the very bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Development mythology.
This one is called player. I think it's called player position and roles.
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
see. Other, hold on. Oh no, sorry, it's not the last one. Other, it is might be the one above that. No, I'll just send you the link. Hold on. I'll put it in the chat right now. All right. I think right now, in my perspective, like it's my opinion. I think it's good for the coaches to have, and then this is a lot of information for the coaches to digest. One, they need to understand what the roles are per position because I think some of them don't. Also, because they might have someone like, oh, this person's a striker for sure. They score all my goals, and they will only score 3 goals in a season. But it's like, you know, look at what they should be doing per that position. Look at what other players are doing better, and you know, and they can graduate to a new position, and you know, things like that. So I think it's good for the coaches to have. Like I said, I think it's too much information to have as a for a
Definitely a lot.
parent.
Yeah, definitely a lot. Yeah, definitely a lot. Yeah, and it could be something later that you give for them if necessary, or you know, you could show it to somebody and say, hey, look, this is what we're looking at and why. That could be a whole nother conversation too. So cool. So we can have this printed for each one. Okay, so I have the notes that I need to get done. Anything else from a standpoint wise that we need to try and work on?
No, I'm good.
I'm okay.
Miss Heather?
I'm good.
Kyle, lastly, did you
Yeah.
get that money?
We got the first one. I'll have to double check on the second one.
Or that means no then. Heather, can you call Dawson? Or G, can you call Dawson for me after this phone call? And,
Yeah.
And if he doesn't answer, please email him, myself, Heather, and Jarvis on that. We can get this taken care of ASAP.
Okay. And it's for the second half?
Yeah, for like the 13K.
Okay. Sounds good, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna do the meeting Friday, 6 o'clock. Javier, I'm gonna try and get there. I'm gonna try and work it out with you. I might be able to do 4:30. I'm gonna try and get there for 4 so I can work with Christian.
Okay.
So just to make sure I'm on the same page, we're gonna be at the facility. We're gonna do it in the office upstairs, right?
No, I updated the calendar, and you should have got an invite. It's going to be at a restaurant. It's called Daiquiri Deck on the island, which is like 5 minutes from the...
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay, so we're gonna do it. Got it. So okay, cool. And then we're gonna do it from roughly 6 to 7:30, but we can stay after if anybody has any questions, right?
Correct.
Cool. Okay, so just trying to make sure I'm on the same page, and then I got to get this stuff done. We actually had our. Do you guys? Oh, you haven't returned yet, right? You guys start next week with the teams.
I'm returning.
Because we actually had to cancel practice because Orange County reached out to us about field closures and stuff for the storm that's coming.
We just canceled it. Yeah,
Okay.
They sent us out the message for tonight, but our fields are closed.